Disney vs. Universal has been one of the great business rivalries of our time. While today that rivalry is epitomized by moves such as Epic Universe in Orlando, in the 1980s their conflict was much pettier and included a number of childish tactics on both sides. This pettiness came to a climax in 1984, when Disney would announce their own Hollywood studio Backlot, literally just down the hill from Universal Studios Hollywood. Over the next few years, the two companies would stoop to blackmail, impersonation, and more to keep each other out of their backyards. The plans for Disney's Backlot were unique, containing retail, restaurants, a clone of the Great Movie Ride, brand new feature animation facilities, and even a restaurant showing what would happen if cows came from the sea. For Review Time, I'm Luke, and this is the story of the Disney MGM Studio Backlot and the bitter rivalry between two multi-billion-dollar companies that created it. The first idea for a Disney studio tour goes back to 1948, where Walt briefly explored the idea of using trains to give guests a tour of his Burbank animation studios. Walt had approached Billy Jones, a known California railroad man, to keep his eyes out for a train that Walt could purchase for his studio tour. But by the time Jones found the perfect train, Walt was too busy with other things such as Cinderella. Walt wouldn't forget his idea though, and over the years found other ways to present a behind-the-scenes look at the animation process to everyday folks, including things such as displays at Disneyland, a traveling museum exhibit, as well as episodes of his weekly TV series. It wouldn't be until Michael Eisner and Frank Wells took over leadership of the Disney Corporation in 1984 that the idea of a Disney studio tour would be brought back to the forefront of the company. When Eisner and Wells took over, their intention was clear: improve Disney's movies. Both of them came from a film background, and at the time, Disney's biggest struggles were in the theatrical realm. The parks in the early 80s were booming. Cable television and the Disney stores were proving to be a great success, but their recent films had turned out to be big-budget, high-profile flops at the box office. The new team got to fixing the motion picture segment of Disney, and fix it they did, starting the Disney Renaissance of animation, leading to some of Disney's best-known films, such as Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, and my personal favorite, Aladdin. One of Eisner's other biggest focuses was aggressively expanding Disney's theme park offerings around the world. But another company hoping to do the same was MCA, the parent company of Universal. They had big plans to develop and build their own theme park in Orlando, just down the road from the Magic Kingdom, expanding their offerings to an East Coast audience, just as Disney had done the decade earlier. But before anything was publicly announced, Disney beat them to the punch, announcing their own movie studio theme park for the Walt Disney World Resort, just 4 months after Eisner took over as CEO, in a blatant attempt to discourage Universal from coming to Florida. MCA wasn't happy and accused Eisner of stealing the idea from them, as his previous role as head of Paramount Pictures meant he was fully aware of the idea. Universal didn't buckle though, and their over $40 million in planning wouldn't go to waste when a year later they would officially announce Universal Studios Florida. On the surface, Disney put on a smile, played nice, and welcomed their new neighbors. Behind the scenes though, Disney had other plans. Disney thought if Universal was going to challenge us on our ground, we'll fight back on their home ground of Hollywood. The studio wars between Disney and Universal had begun, and their hostility wasn't going to be kept behind closed doors for much longer, when in 1987, Disney and the city of Burbank announced their plans for a brand new attraction, the Disney MGM Studio Backlot, just down the hill from Universal Studios Hollywood. For a few years, the city of Burbank, home to the Walt Disney Studios, was trying to revitalize their city center. But when tenants for their $158 million mall project fell through, the entire project fell apart. That was until Councilman Robert Bone came up with an ingenious idea. Why don't we let Disney dream a dream for Burbank? When approached with the idea, Eisner was ecstatic and instantly went into planning mode, detailing to the council grandiose plans from their very first meeting. These plans came so quickly because they were adapted from a project Disney had recently been working on called Texposition, a massive themed mall in Dallas, Texas. Texposition was planned to be the first of many high-end malls that would combine shopping with distinctive Disney entertainment. On April 24th, Mayor Michael Hastings traveled to Imagineering, where he was presented with an over 2-hour pitch about the proposal, after which he stormed out, thinking, "Never in my city." Unsurprisingly though, pretty much no one agreed with him. And less than 2 weeks later, the city council voted unanimously to grant Disney an option to buy 40 acres of land smack in the heart of Burbank for the bargain basement price of $1 million. The council had gone all in on Disney's plans for the Disney MGM Studios Backlot. This deal gave Disney a 6-month exclusivity to develop the plans, with a further 6 months allowed for revision of those plans based on council feedback. These plans didn't sit well with MCA, who saw them as a threat, a way for Disney to try and intimidate them away from their Universal Florida plans. Jay Stein, president of MCA's Recreation Division, wasn't going to let Disney's mind games affect him, saying, "We're not afraid of Disney, we're ready to take them on." They didn't wait too long either to give their direct answer to Disney's backlot plans, announcing just 3 weeks later a holistic transformation of Universal Studios Hollywood, bringing in 4 brand new attractions, including Earthquake, the Miami Vice Stunt Show, E.T. Adventure, as well as Back to the Future the ride. This rubbed Disney the wrong way, and they decided to answer back in an underhanded method. According to Jay Stein, Disney approached MCA with an offer that could only be described as blackmail. Disney would withdraw from their plans in Burbank if Universal would agree to never build their Floridian park. Unsurprisingly, MCA turned down this offer. But before we take a look at what this Burbank backlot would have been, over to me for a quick word on this week's sponsor. Hi there, me again, here to tell you about this week's sponsor, Skillshare, an online learning community jam-packed with thousands of classes for creators like you and me. No matter if you're looking to learn something new, expand on your existing passions, or simply get lost in creativity, Skillshare has the perfect class for you, covering topics ranging from video editing, photography, music production, and so much more. A class I've been enjoying recently is YouTube Success, Script, Shoot, and Edit with MKBHD by Marquez Brownlee, as even though I've been making videos for over 10 years, I know I've still got more to learn. And things such as you seeing my face today instead of just hearing my voice is thanks to things I've learned from the course. The best thing of all though is as Skillshare is curated for learning and constant self-improvement, there's no ads. And every time you log in, you'll find something new and exciting. The first 1,000 of our subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can start exploring your creativity today. And now, let's explore exactly what the Burbank backlot would have been. The Disney MGM Studio Backlot in Burbank would have been a new venture for Disney, a retail and entertainment district that was a mix of Disney MGM Studios theme park downtown Disney, as well as Pleasure Island. The $300 million project would include stores, nightclubs, and even attractions such as a carbon copy of the Great Movie Ride, which was under construction in Orlando at the time. Of course, being an Eisner-era idea, it had to have an in-depth, convoluted backstory that 99% of guests would never notice. The story of the Backlot went as follows. In the golden days of Hollywood, all studios shot their motion pictures on big, impressive backlots. Those days died off though when on-location shooting became more popular, leaving the backlots to decay. Disney had saved their old abandoned backlot from demolition though, and brought it back to life to use as a shooting location that just so happens to have shops and restaurants and attractions in it as well. These old backlot areas would have found a new home in the Golden State Mall, a shopping district themed to a Gold Rush era town thanks to the Western movie sets all around. Of course, in the great studio theme park fashion, these would have all merely been unfinished facades, meant to give guests a look at the magic of movie making, but more so showing the magic of saving money under the guise of theming. Other themed streets in the backlot area would have included New York, European villages, and the Ginza district of Tokyo, with each having their own themed streetmosphere performers to help bring the location to life. The upper level of the backlot would have contained the adults-only nightclubs, very similar to how Universal Orlando has their nightclubs laid out at City Walk. Interesting clubs of note would have been one where guests could operate audio animatronic figures, and even a movie-themed version of the Adventurers Club, where a storage warehouse would come to life and the movie props within would relive their famous on-screen roles by embodying the performers who held them. On the other end of the spectrum from the nightclubs would have been the California Canyon, a quiet and relaxing place where you could sit back and absorb the ambiance of a running waterfall, designed to mask the traffic sounds from just outside the backlot. Also in the California Canyon would have been the impressive Hollywood Fantasy Hotel, with each floor of the hotel being themed to a different film genre, such as a western, a fantasy, or even a film noir. After exploring these free-to-access areas, guests could enter the more traditional, theme park-esque area of the backlot. Similarly to Disney MGM Studios in Orlando, the backlot would have included a working animation department, which guests could tour through, with the building also containing a public museum showcasing items from the Disney archives and a multiplex cinema. Nearby, guests could dine at the Soundstage restaurant, allowing you to step foot into your favorite Disney films for a character dining meal. This area would also be home to the Great Movie Ride, a Star Tours type simulator attraction teaching guests about movie special effects, and a version of Superstar Television, where guests could be placed via green screen into some famous Disney movies and TV shows. Of course, being Disney in the 80s, there would also be a Videopolis Teenage Dance Club, with just this club alone having attendance goals of 1.5 million guests a year. The final area of the backlot would have been a waterfront entertainment district called the California Pier, built on a man-made 45cm deep lagoon known as the Burbank Ocean. The area was set to be built around the backlot's old special effects water tank. How many guests would have honestly understood that little story beat? The pier would have contained several classic boardwalk amusement favorites such as a funhouse, bumper cars, and a half-underwater Ferris wheel. All of this pales in comparison, though, to one of Disney's most cooked ideas ever. At the edge of the waterfront would have been the Fish Out of Water restaurant, where guests would have boarded a rowboat from the pier that would drop them off at an abandoned ship, hanging off the side of the mountain. Inside would be a traditional-looking seafood restaurant with a twist, as described by Imagineers as,
"Something's wrong and beef lives in the sea."
This restaurant was a steakhouse themed to some weird alternative reality where cows came from the sea. Photos around would show schools of cows leaping from the water, Ernest Hemingway fishing for bison, and hanging from the ceiling would be 12-foot long cow traps. While these plans sound grandiose and arguably kind of cool, MCA would do everything they could to try and get them cancelled. First, they announced a lawsuit intended to stop Disney in their tracks and attempted to get the local Burbank residents on their side. Jay Stein told reporters, "If I were on the Burbank City Council, I would not have insulted the taxpayers of Burbank by offering a piece of land for $1 million that I would conservatively say really cost $50 million. If anyone should be outraged, it's the citizens of Burbank." MCA, though, wasn't the only ones bringing legal issues to Disney. MGM also came forward to claim that Disney had no right to use their name or properties in this Disney MGM studio backlot, and that their deal only included rights for the Orlando park, meaning Disney announced this project without even telling MGM they would be a part of it. Disney shrugged off these lawsuits though, and moved forward on what they were now calling an entertainment center, even announcing that they were exploring opportunities to build similar centers in Chicago, Philadelphia, and San Antonio. Shortly after this, citizens of Burbank began to receive pamphlets describing the mess the Disney backlot would cause to their area, urging them to start up a civilian-led movement to oppose the plans and prevent their humble town from being turned into a dirty tourist hotspot. One of the pamphlets even featured a picture of the Disneyland castle on the front with the caption, "It's a great place to visit." However, when you opened it up, there were images of sketchy hotels, cheap liquor stores, and tacky tourist traps, with another line of text simply saying, "But you wouldn't want to live there." These pamphlets were being sent by a political action group known as the Friends of Burbank. There was just one problem. The Friends of Burbank was just MCA in disguise, trying another tactic to get Disney away from their Hollywood theme park. Throughout all of this, the city of Burbank was sitting between two mega companies having a slinging match when all they wanted to do was build a local mall. As time went on, the plan seemed less and less likely. In October of 1987, Disney announced that the plans would have to be scaled back to become profitable, with the expected budget ballooning to $618 million. 6 months later, it was official. Disney sent a letter to Burbank withdrawing from the agreement to buy the land, after spending over $2.5 million and 22,000 man-hours developing the concept. Officially, the reason was money. According to Michael Eisner, when we started playing around with the concept and eliminating things like the Burbank Ocean, it started becoming a project that it would not take Disney to do. With Disney, we have to exceed our guests' expectations. They expect a lot. Right at that same time, Disney had several new, exciting prospects on the horizon they felt would be a better fit for their dollars, including the purchase of the Rather Corporation, the owners of the Disneyland Hotel, the Euro Disneyland project, and the continued exploration of a second theme park for Disneyland. Ultimately, though, I like to think that the executives simply woke up one day and realized this was a really expensive way to try and give Universal the middle finger, with very little chance of huge success coming from it. In the end, the city of Burbank would build a more generic, modern mall with chain stores and a cinema being the single form of entertainment. Mayor Hastings felt contempt towards Disney for how they were treated, saying they promised us the world and then they pulled the rug. It was a very cold shower for the community and the community government. Disney would try again a few years later in the regional entertainment market with Disney Quest, and even though 2 locations would open, it too proved to not lead to the success Disney had hoped for. Ultimately, even concepts such as Disney stores are closing around the world right now, and the closest you'll get to that Disney experience in your hometown nowadays is turning on the TV and watching Disney Plus. If you're interested in learning more about the Disney MGM Studio Backlot, make sure to check out the Disney History Institute articles on the plans. They go into much more detail than I ever could. Also check out one of the pitch presentations for the project, available right here on YouTube. Both links are in the description. From the home of all things theme parks, I'm Luke for ReviewTyme. Thanks for watching.